Welcome everyone to our webinar. We'll get started in just a couple minutes here. I went ahead in advance and shared some of the links we'll be discussing today. One of them is the links to all the documents created as part of the UNR webinar, and the second is information about the overall webinar series that we did throughout the webinar. So you'll have those links in advance. I'll have to share that a few more times because people that join after I post those won't have access. But since you all joined a little early, I thought I'd share it in case you wanted to access that before we got started. Okay, I see we're now at the top of the hour, so welcome everybody. Welcome to our webinar on the DDIAPT deliverables. That's the demonstration and deployment of innovative asphalt pavement technology. We're going to do an overall review of the products that were developed and an impact on the FHWA and DOT strategic goals. As part of the discussion, I'd like to remind you to mute your microphone and, if possible, turn off your video, as sometimes folks have bandwidth issues. My name's Tim Aschenbrenner. I'm with the FHWA Office of Materials, our Office of Infrastructure. I'm on the Pavement Materials team, and I'm working with the University of Nevada, Reno on the cooperative agreement, the DDIAPT, the development and deployment of innovative asphalt pavement technologies. Essentially, we're all about implementation. We're winding down the tasks we have as our agreement is coming to an end here in a couple of weeks. So the main purpose of today's meeting is just to do a review or overview of what's been created. We'll probably have about a 45-minute presentation. We'll be able to follow that by Q&A, so we'll have plenty of time for Q&A, and be sure as questions come up to enter those in the chat. So as I mentioned, this will be the final webinar of our cooperative agreement, although I should mention we have a new cooperative agreement that's just begun, and we hope to start a new webinar series as products are developed later this year. So at this point in time, I'll be glad to turn it over to our presenter, Adam Hand from the University of Nevada, Reno, for the presentation. Adam, it's all yours.
Thank you, Tim, and good morning or afternoon, everyone. I guess it's afternoon here, so probably afternoon for everybody. I can't believe this is our last webinar already. It seems like we just got started, and I don't know where all the time went, but it's been a fun ride. And as Tim said, the job today is really just to sort of share what we got accomplished as part of the cooperative agreement. And okay. Okay, with all of these presentations that we do associated with the cooperative agreement, we have to share disclaimers. I'm not going to read through this, but this is an updated disclaimer for all of you that have not seen it recently. At any rate, this is a new one, and I'll give you a minute to go ahead and read that. Okay, we also have to cover any acronyms that we're gonna talk about. And so this is a list of acronyms. And again, I think these will be familiar to everyone. And at that point, we can begin go ahead and get talking about what our goals are today and what our intended outcomes are. And really with this webinar, what we just want to do is recognize the various products that were developed as part of the cooperative agreement. Sort of understand the links between those and the Federal Highway Administration and USDOT strategic plans. Recognize sort of the impact of the products, and as well as a number of agencies and individuals and stakeholders that have hopefully benefited from the products. And what we've done is we've collected information on, for example, the number of times that a report has been uniquely been tagged on the website. And I just use that as an example. I'll talk about some more here in a minute. I'm going to go through a little introduction background, talk about the USDOT and FHWA strategic plans, just in the context of, not in a bunch of detail, but in the context of this project. Then go through and share a summary of the products that have been developed, and then big picture summary, and sort of break it down into different areas that we worked on, and different types of products. And then hopefully make sure that in wrapping up that you know where to go find those products if you want in the future. You'll see multiple QR codes along the way in the presentation. And then of course have Q&A. So as far as the introduction goes, you know, as Tim said, our cooperative agreement is just wrapping up. It was initiated in the fall of 2017. And the team is FHWA-UNR, Paragon Technical Services, and ARA. And on this slide, on the right-hand side, you'll see a couple QR codes. One of those is to the FHWA co-op website. The other one's to the UNR co-op website. And I think we go back and forth in terms of sharing each other. So you've got a couple different options there. With this agreement, the way it was structured, there were basically 6 innovation areas identified when the notice of funding opportunity came out. And so as part of the agreement, these 6 innovation areas were sort of the bounds of what we would be working on. And with it being a cooperative agreement, each year we would meet and identify tasks to work on for the subsequent, for the following year, starting in the fall. And we really ended up focusing in most of our efforts in 4 of the 6 innovation areas. But the way that worked is we would again collectively put our heads together, come up with ideas as a team. The list of entities on that list over there, as a team, we come up with some ideas, and then we would write sort of one-pagers or a paragraph, and then eventually a one-pager on what the work that would be done around that idea was. Eventually, those became statements of work. They were reviewed. There would be feedback. Some of them would get thrown out. Some of them would get revised, and then we would ultimately get them approved. The ones that held water, and then we would go ahead and do the work. And the work in some cases was done in a year. Sometimes it was multiple years. It just depended on what the task was. And we obviously generated products from that process. So the products, or the activities and the products that we generated were really our deliverables. And today, again, I'm just going to kind of summarize what some of those were. So, and the last thing is we needed to make sure that we provided access and to the deliverables, as well as communicated them, and that's part of what we're doing today. So, and I really just talked about this. The only thing that really is a little bit different here is that, to give you some examples of the types of products that we delivered, we frequently would do technical reports, tech briefs, which might be a 15-page summary of a technical report. We've done a fair amount of presentations in the form of webinars like today, but also at conferences and so forth around the country during the duration of the project. We developed some videos. There were workshops. There were peer exchanges. All of these deliverables were always reviewed. FHWA had a team of SMEs, and they would always review our deliverables, provide feedback, and then we'd make revisions, and then ultimately get out what you'll find on the website, for example. And those deliverables have always been accessible or FHWA compliant, depending on what the deliverables have been. This is the innovation areas, the 6 innovation areas. They were identified as A through F, and it's materials, resource responsible use of materials for flexible pavement systems. That's A and B. Then design is specifications and practices is C, and pavement preservation specifications and practices is D. And then real-time pavement production and construction controls was E, and F was forensics. And the reality is we are the guardrails that we ended up staying in through the duration of the project were really B through E. So that's what we'll focus on today. We had 15 work plan task areas, and I'll give you just a table in a minute and show what that is. Then we had 1 to 8 subtasks per area. And this slide is an attempt to illustrate that. So we've got I'm going to close that over my monitor. So the innovation area in this slide, we've got materials as A, and then B again is resource responsible use of materials for flexible pavement systems. And then we've got work plan tasks and subs, right? So we've got A1, A2. As I said, we didn't do any work in A. In B, for example, B1 is high reclaimed asphalt pavement mixtures. And under there, we had 2 subtasks. One was on RAP, the use of RAP best practices, and another was on cold asphalt recycling best practices. Okay, so an idea here is just to give you some sense of how this is organized. We're not going to get into the details of all of this in the presentation. We're going to try to keep it at a higher level than getting into the details of each individual subtask. This is task C, and you notice that this task takes a whole page, and when we look at some of the statistics, it'll make sense as to why. The previous task was A and B combined. This is C, and it took the whole page, and when we look at deliverables again, there'll be quite a few associated with task C, and you can peruse those, and you can see there was a lot of work in the BMD arena, as well as everything from binder stuff to in-place density, quality assurance, and so forth. So there's a very broad area. The last one here shows D, E, and F. And the reality is we really just did one project in each of D and one in E. Now, there's a report associated with this webinar, and there's going to be tables and tables and tables in there, and I'm not going to go through and show you all these tables because I would bore you to death. But the idea is a report will have every deliverable. It'll have in this exhibit, for example, the first row in this table is the FHWA document number, what it was about, right? So this was on PPA. Modification of asphalt binders. It was a technical report. The date, the number of visits, that is the number of unique visits to the website to go look at that document. Okay, and then we've got that broken down by where the visitor was reaching out from, whether it was in the U.S. or from another country. Now, graphically, we've summarized that, and this is task B, and it's just a snapshot of task B, and it's for a couple of the different SOWs that we worked on or tasks. And for example, the first one there on the left is resource responsible use of high RAP mixtures. So what we have there is the number of total visits to go look at that, whatever that document was, whether it was the report or the tech brief, how many of them were in the U.S., right? How many of them were outside the U.S., and then people that attended we had depending on the activity, we had virtual site visits, and which could include webinars or participation in meetings that we had with different entities that we worked with. And so the last bar is folks that were sort of I guess touched the process as we did them. To get to a higher level, because we went through every document, we'd be on here for a couple hours. We don't want to do that. So at a higher level, we've summarized publications, webinars, videos, those types of things, so that you can get a sense of what was done. In an innovation area B, okay, we had a total of 3,474 again unique visits to the website to get technical reports, 4,600 to get to tech briefs, and a little over 2,000 to get to white papers. And again, the striped bars are the visits in the U.S. and the green ones are from outside the U.S. And just as a note, the National Asphalt Paving Association industry survey on recycled materials in warm mix asphalt that comes out annually is produced as part of this cooperative agreement also. Again, in partnership with NAPA and FHWA, and these statistics do not include visits to that report, just so folks realize that the numbers would obviously be higher. In innovation area C, you see we've got reports, tech briefs, and case studies. The case studies would be the workshop reports, the BMD workshop reports, for example. We're up at over 21,000 visits, and again, with the bulk of them being in the U.S., but a pretty significant amount internationally as well. This is a map showing where the balanced mix design case study virtual and in-person workshops took place. These were initiated during, COVID was going on, so we were doing stuff more virtually, and then transitioned to more in person. But there were 21 workshops that have been completed as part of this agreement, and there were almost 800 participants in those 21 workshops from across the country. This is peer exchanges, again, associated with BMD, and these are regional peer exchanges. So you'll see groups of states together in the upper left, for example. So I'm in Nevada today, so that would be the Rocky Mountain Peer Exchange, right? That was hosted by Utah Department of Transportation. Okay, then in the Midwest, you've got the group in yellow in the upper for Midwest. You've got the North Central in green, and then the Southeast in sort of orange, if you will. And there's a Mid-Atlantic peer exchange that's planned for the future. And then the mega states peer exchange was California, Texas, and Florida. Those are monster states, right? I don't have specific numbers of participants on this one, but there were multiple DOTs that had participants at each of these peer exchanges. This is innovation area D, and we only had one publication in this particular area, and there were a little over 1,000 visits on that one, and they were all U.S. visitors. And finally, in innovation area E, which was real-time pavement production and construction controls. Again, we had one item that was on, really it was focused on DPS, but it included a little bit on thermal profiling as well. And there were, again, about 500 hits on, again, unique visits to go get to that report. So now I'm going to use an example for webinars. Again, we're not going to go through all of them, but just to show that we broke down stuff. We have the data at the individual webinar level, and I mean, that's how we would roll things up. And on this, again, we're starting with innovation area B, which was our responsible use of recycled materials. And you can see the first document on the left had to do with recycled tire rubber. And on the webinar, we've had again 607 people at the time these numbers were taken. They're a few weeks old now, actually. But 607 folks had gone and looked at that webinar. Okay, there were 90 and actually on the webinar. Okay, and of those 607 that went and looked, the split between the U.S. and other countries is listed there. So we have these, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but we have the data in this form for each webinar as well. We've had 17, a little over 1,700 folks go look at webinars, and about 430 participants, maybe a little more than that, that have been online when we did the webinar. Sometimes it's hard to get good numbers because there'll be groups of people in a single room type of thing. So those numbers aren't the participants aren't right on. We get to innovation area C, just like the reports went up, and that was the page with the that was a whole page just for that innovation area. We get up to 3,300 visits and over 1,200 participants. Again, very, very encouraging. And again, it's a whole array of topics. This one took 2 slides because there's so many in that area, but the total numbers didn't change there. And then in an innovation area E, we've had 193 unique visits, and 173 people participated in the webinar. When we also developed a series of really 2 series of videos. One was associated with AMPT testing, and another was with BMD testing. And really, it's just 4 videos in each of those categories. And you can go to the QR codes and go to FHW's website or UNR's website. You can go find these. And to date, again, as of a few weeks ago, we had over 22,000 views of the videos. Looks like the numbers are a little bit higher on the BMD, and they're particularly high on the 2 most common tests that folks are using, right? Which would be the Hamburg wheel track test and the indirect tensile cracking test. So at a very high level now, summarizing all the publications across the innovation areas. We've had visits to about 33,000 visits to publications that were generated. So it's really encouraging to see that we've got those kind of numbers, folks coming out to see the products, and again, those are unique visits. And then this is webinars, right? So over 5,000 visits with over 1,800 participants total. And then videos that we just looked at that statistic a minute ago, over 22,000. So that's to give you some context of, or as to the areas that we worked in, and then the products that were developed. And like I said, it was common that a technical report would be developed, a tech brief. And if you notice, if you looked at those publication slides, tech briefs were always high, right? Folks want things boiled down to less than 15 pages with some graphics. And that's sort of the rule on tech briefs, is 15 pages. And so those were particularly popular. Then obviously, like I said, we had webinars, and then there might have been some unique things outside of webinars too, depending on what the innovation area and the specific task was. Now, one of the things that we wanted to do is having completed this work, take a sort of reflected on it and look back in the mirror and say, what was the work that was done supportive of the FHWA strategic plan? The strategic plan for 2022 to 2026 this is a cover of the graphic on it. And there's a link there to the website where you can go look at the strategic plan. So what we did is we went through the USDOT and FHWA strategic plans, and we tried to tie the work from the cooperative agreement to the strategic plan to really see where there were links and whether or not areas within the strategic plan were supported by the work that was done. Now, both the USDOT and FHWA strategic plans have strategic goals, strategic objectives, and key performance indicators. And you notice that the line in red there, this is the US DOT strategic plan. But the line below that, it basically says that the FHWA drives its direction from the 6 US DOT strategic plan goals. So when we look at the US DOT and FHWA strategic plans, we see that the goals and objectives are the same. But there are some differences in KPIs, and KPIs, that's where they differ. But interestingly, KPIs are really their key performance indicators, right? And there's things that statistics can be kept around to see if, you know, if what the goal and objective were leading to, right, an outcome that was a KPI that was desired. And so, as I said, there are 6, maybe I didn't say that. There are 6 strategic goals: safety, economic strength and global competitiveness, equity, climate and sustainability, transformation, and organizational excellence. Okay. Now, this table is an attempt to show just a snapshot of the strategic plan. So, and what you see is a column with strategic goals, and it's only part of them because I can't get it all on one screen, right? So, for example, here we've got strategic goal. Okay, the goal is safety. So, what are the objectives? Safe design, safe systems, right? Safe public, safe workers, and then critical infrastructure, cybersecurity. Now, the KPIs is where you really again get down to the things that matter. So, the KPI is around reducing 66% of motor vehicle related fatalities by 2040 to demonstrate progress to achieving 0 highway fatalities, roadway fatalities. So the key KPIs are very specific. Okay? And there are, like I said, KPIs for each of the strategic goals and objectives, and I just use that as an example to illustrate that. And I'd like to use and this is all of the strategic goals and strategic objectives without the KPIs because it gets too big. We can't get it all on one page. But what I want to do is take a look at one strategic goal where the USDOT and FHWA KPIs were consistent, and just share with you some examples of the connectivity between the strategic goals, objectives, KPIs, and the products that were produced as part of the cooperative agreement. So let me back up. This is the goals, objectives, and KPIs. Now, this slide still has the goals, objectives, and KPIs, but on the far right, the last column has products that were developed that support the goals, objectives, and KPIs. And these are examples, and again, this is within the climate and sustainability one. And we've got, use of high wrap mixtures in there. And so that would be a subtask. And the deliverables there were technical report, a tech brief, and a webinar, right? So there are multiple deliverables that support that. The next one is recycled tire rubber. Then we've got the use of RAS. Then we've got asphalt pavement recycling technologies. That was on cold recycling and hot recycling technologies primarily in place, a little bit of central plant. There's an alternative contracting methods, pavement preservation, white paper in there, and then of course all the stuff associated with the BMD efforts, which again included technical reports, tech briefs, peer exchanges, workshops, videos, and webinars. So if we, from a sustainability perspective, if we use those tools, that products that were developed are used to develop more sustainable pavements, which clearly the intent of all of those would support that, then it supports the goal. And this is just an example of that. And again, I'm not going to go through this for every goal because we'd be here forever. But what we see in the next slide is a summary across the 6 strategic goals and objective areas. And in the far right, where you see the DDIAPT items, we've got the innovation areas we worked in, B and C, for example, under safety. And there are 12 subtasks related to the KPIs associated with safety. And a lot of those, again, had to do with getting folks off the road. And again, the longer you can build a pavement, the longer a pavement lasts, you're going to reduce risk. And then with economic strength and global competitiveness, and again, innovation areas B and C, we did efforts that support that. And we identified 8 subtasks. And again, there would be multiple, for every subtask, there are multiple, right, deliverables. It's like, again, the technical reports, webinars, workshops, all that good stuff. We just a minute ago talked about the climate and sustainability one, and then the transformation, and that included innovation areas B and E, and there were 4 subtasks that we worked on in that one. And we weren't, it's not like we were liberal in trying to make connections here. We didn't list anything unless it was very clear that there was a connection or a link. You could probably, you could probably grab some more that you might call a stretch, but we weren't liberal in that process at all. So there's probably realities are probably maybe even some more than we actually identified here. So in summary, the cooperative agreement was initiated in the fall of 2017. It was a 5-year agreement. Like I said, we're wrapping up some of the final deliverables right now. We believe that the deliverables are well aligned, fortunately, with the USDOT and FHWA strategic plans, as well as their goals, objectives, and KPIs. Everything that's been generated has been publicly shared. There's access to it, and it's all available from FHWA and UNR websites. And what's really exciting is we were awarded more recently another cooperative agreement with Federal Highway Administration that's just getting started. The logo for it's in the bottom right corner there. We're trying to create some separation between the two so everybody can understand that. It's another 5-year agreement, and it'll be structured similar to the previous one, or the one that we're just wrapping up. So in wrapping this one up, there's a thank you to all involved here, because this really did take a lot of teamwork. It took not only the folks on our team, which is FHWA-UNR ARA and Paragon Technical Services, but everybody that we interacted with at agencies, at contractors, everybody. It also, I shared that everything we generated had to be reviewed by subject matter experts, and we went through rounds of, just it's kind of like publishing a paper or something. We went through rounds of technical reviews and then 5-way compliance and all that stuff. So again, a lot of people worked on all of that. So it's easy for me to sit here and say, hey, the team did this. We got X number of publications, but there are a lot of people that worked on these things. And as I said, we engaged a lot of state DOTs with some cities and counties, and again contractors and so forth. So academics. And so a lot of people were involved. And so the point here is to really thank everyone that was involved for helping generate the products that you saw listed, and developing those ties that supported the strategic plans of the USDOT and FHWA. We think that the deliverables have been pretty far reaching and impactful, right? We had a lot of, not only across the US, but a lot of folks internationally that have looked at those. Like again, the contributions are significant, and we want to thank everybody for the support that we had along the way in getting this together. There are some other things that we didn't even include in this. We probably could have, but these are one-page documents. The one is on the left, and it's on the overall cooperative agreement. And there's a link on that page, at the bottom of the page, where you can go to that one pager, and then it's got links to all the stuff at FHWA. On the right-hand side, that's our webinar series. Those are the webinars that we did. And again, that's a one-pager on the webinars. The link at the bottom, very bottom of the page, is the link to that one pager. And you can go again, look at any of those webinars. With that, I guess I'd like to thank everybody for being on today. Hopefully, you have a better, maybe you knew all the stuff that was out there, but hopefully, if not, hopefully you have a better grasp of what is out there, and you know where you can go find it. Again, the QR code on the left right now is FHWA's website. The one on the right, UNR. It doesn't matter where you go. We'd love to see you go look at the products. With that, I think I'll call it sort of wrapped up, and turn it back over to Tim. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Adam. Appreciate the update and all the information. If there's any questions, feel free to type them into the chat pod. The QR codes are on the screen, but then I also put in the chat pod there the links to the various documents as well as the webinar series. I guess got a comment here from my team leader, Gina. So she says, great job, team. Thanks for all the work. So always appreciate hearing that. Thank you. Yeah, I guess just a couple things jumped out at me, Adam. I don't know if you can go back to slide number 8. And slide number 8, I think we actually spelled out the the 6 innovation areas. Sometimes we just referred to them as A, B, C, and such, but
Oh, I went too far.
yeah, there
Hunter didn't catch up.
There we go.
There
Yeah.
we go. Sorry.
Yeah, so the 6 areas there, I think it was pretty clear as you went through that. Area C, Innovation Area C, had the balanced mix design, and then Innovation Area B had the recycled materials. Those two clearly jumped out top. And I don't know if you had any comments on the various innovation areas and where you saw people going and looking, and any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the B, this is innovation. I'll just show B and then C so everybody can sort of see what's in there. And it was responsible use of materials in flexible pavement systems, and that was really, it was highly focused on really sort of on recycling, right? If you think about it, there's tire rubber twice, and then there's wrap, there's RAS, there's cold recycling, all that good stuff. So, and I think, early on that had a little more attention maybe, but by far, Innovation Area C, and the numbers showed it, right? Clearly showed it, was by far the innovation area that we did the most work on. And early on in that area, there was some work on AMPT and PRS, and it shifted to BMD, and there's obviously a lot of the numbers. When you look at the details in the report, you'll see many of the numbers in that Innovation Area C. A big chunk of it is associated with BMD. All those workshops, right? All the peer exchanges, all the documents, and I think you know, if you look at the items that got a lot of attention, those are also the ones that we were out, you know, different team members at different times were out also making presentations, you know, at conferences and so forth, right? Um, and so I guess you know, Tim, to your point, B and C is clearly where the you know the bulk of the work was, and C had all the BMD stuff, but it also had, you know, stuff of interest. It had stuff on binder that you know wasn't out there. We had SMAs in there. We got quality assurance in there. We got the density stuff that we did early on. So yeah, so it was again, B and C got a lot of attention, but in C again, significant amount of the work was associated with BMD.
Very good.
The hot
Yeah,
top.
and then maybe oh, go ahead.
Well, I said it's a hot topic right now, right? BMD.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sizzling hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I don't know if you go to slide 15, you know, we generated a lot of products. You know, some of them were written like reports, tech briefs, case studies, but then we had other things like peer exchanges, webinars. Just look at these written publications, 21,000 related to those in the BMD category. But of all the different medium that we displayed them, from written to going to having workshops, to going to conference presentations, to webinars. I don't know if you have a sense of which medium you thought was most effective at getting information out, or probably some kind of combination, I suspect.
Yeah, I think it's clearly a combination, but again, regardless of what innovation area, if it was a publication, tech briefs were really popular. You see the numbers here, right? In
Yeah.
each case, you know, we wrote our technical reports, right? But those tech briefs got a lot of attention. Yeah, and for example, like the case studies there on the right, that would all be the BMD workshops. Case study reports.
Okay. Yeah, very good. And another thing that jumps out that we should not leave overlooked is that COVID interrupted our efforts there. I know Adam and I were planning to go visit some states and find out what their tips and tricks and secrets to using high RAP were. Ellie and I, we were going to go visit some lead states on implementing balanced mix design. So even without COVID, we still found a way through these electronic media like Zoom and MS Teams and all that to try to get information. And I don't know if you have any recollection on how that may have impacted our efforts. It slowed us down a little, but we still got a lot of things done.
Yeah, it did. It did slow us down a little, and this is another probably a really good opportunity to thank the folks that we engaged, right? Because we would, you know, and you'll remember this, Tim. We were very fortunate to get, for example, to get DOTs to get a team together at their, you know, in their state, and meet with us over the course of 3 days. And we put together these long questionnaires, and then we'd have these meetings. We'd meet a few hours in the morning, a few hours in the afternoon. We'd try to summarize everything. And again, we got really good information. People were really good about supporting, and they, you know, it was a lot of work on their part. You know, again, in the midst of COVID. So yeah, it was an interesting process. It was you know, worked, right? But it wasn't like going and spending a day or a day and a half and you know, getting to see things. Sometimes, you know, they would do lab tours or whatever, and they would run labs with their, you know, with their phones or their iPads, and you know, we'd have tours and all kinds of things. So you know, folks got creative too. It was wonderful to have all the support, you know, that we got through that process. But yeah, hopefully no more COVID on the next round. So.
Yes, very good. Ellie, did you want to chime in with something?
I was going to mention the lab tools, but I think Adam mentioned it because
Okay.
it's still stuck in my mind, you know, how we got creative. That's the lab tour. So that was good. And we want to thank all those agencies that participated virtually. We know it wasn't easy at that time.
Yes, and I see a couple of folks from Illinois on the call here, and just because of that, I recall visiting Illinois, and they'd be walking around with the iPhone showing us their iFit setup, and then we go to different parts of the lab, and we'd each be at our house watching these lab tours on the camera, but getting a lot of good information that turns out to being really helpful to others that are going through that implementation process. I think on slide 20 was the next thing that maybe jumped out at me. And on that one, we're doing these webinars. And what was interesting to me there, I'm really pleased with the amount of people that attend the webinars, but we record them. And then we put the recordings on the website. And so I don't know if you have any comments about the availability of these webinars via recording.
No, I think it's obviously, if you look at the numbers, right? I mean, if the totals, they're significantly higher than the number of people that participated in the webinars. And some webinars we've had, maybe up to, over, well over 100 people, right? And so obviously people are going back and looking at them. I never, honestly, when we were early on, when we were recording them, the way we did them was kind of clunky, and it was, I'm old, so making recordings isn't at the top of my list. And I had to do multiple times in some cases. And I remember, at times thinking, I hope this isn't all for nothing, because I don't think anybody's going to go back and look at them. But clearly, the numbers show that folks, the first one on the left, right, 607 folks, unique folks went and looked at a webinar. So it's encouraging that they did get viewed as they have been viewed as much. Hopefully they'll continue to be viewed into the future. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, they'll be around for a while, so that'll be handy, and I'm sure they'll remain valid for a period to come. Yeah, slide 24 also, there's something that jumped out at me there as well in terms of the videos. I know sometimes videos are somewhat cumbersome to put together, but 22,000 views of videos of the various tests, and
It's a lot. It'd be interesting to look at those in time series, because with all the BMD stuff, of late, or more recently, and we see those spike on those too. It would be interesting to look at those relative to for example, the workshops and peer exchanges.
yeah, and then the videos, those of course are videos of the test procedure, people actually running the test, and some of the other webinars are maybe more from the engineering if you're going to put together an implementation plan or a specification. And so it sounds like a wide audience, reaching a wide audience as well.
Yeah, and the videos are they're brief. I mean, they're brief. Videos sometimes they get too long, right? So they're really well done, and ARA really was they had the film crew and all that good stuff. But it was, yeah, they knew what they were doing, and they're well done.
Very good. I was going to have one more comment, but I might put it out to the participants. If you have any thoughts of any of the particular products or the particular media that was used, whether it's a tech brief or a workshop or a video, if you wanted to type any comments in there, that would certainly be of interest, and just offer you to share your thoughts. We'd appreciate that. And if you're giving that some thought, one of the last things I'd point out is on slide 36, we started doing one-pagers. Didn't do one-pagers at the beginning, started doing those more towards the end. And one story there that jumped out to me was we have a tech brief on asphalt pavement in place recycling. And one of the things we highlighted in there was the sustainability benefits, the lower greenhouse gas emissions. And at FHWA, we have to go through several layers of approval. And so the tech brief went through the approval process and was moving along. But then we made a one-pager about it. Well, the one-pager went up to the highest levels within FHWA, and at the highest level of FHWA, they said, wait, I went looking for this tech brief and I don't see it. Where's the tech brief? I want to read it. So I had to explain, well, they signed off on it 2 weeks ago and it's in the process, but just 2 weeks ahead of this one pager. So one pagers have a tendency to get attention of upper management and then really draw attention to some of the details that are available in the tech brief. So I think we might be using some of the one pager technique a little more often in the newer cooperative agreement we have. But the one pagers were kind of fun to put together, and I don't know if you have any comments about that. You try to condense a 100-page report down to a 15-page tech brief, and then we say, okay, all I want to know is one page. If you have any thoughts about that.
Well, yeah, how engineers are, right? We're into the detail. It's not easy, but obviously, again, they're effective, right? If they get the right reaction, then I mean, I'm all for them. And yeah, and the other thing is you can do a one pager and you can have a picture on there and you can have things that look neat. It's not just like, pages in a report, right? So they can be a little bit catchy with the eye also, which I think maybe helps a little. So, but yeah, again, when you said a note about the response of the story you just shared, that was encouraging, right? Because
yeah.
Senior administration, they're the ones that can make decisions about resources and that type of thing, right? So it's great.
Okay. Well, very good. As you went through the presentation, those were a few things I thought were worth highlighting or mentioning. I don't see any other comments, so maybe I might give you, Adam and Ellie, if you want any closing comments on all the products that were developed.
I mean, I'll just again thank everybody that participated, from team members to folks that we interacted with, those of you that have that are here on the webinar today, right? It was a fun ride. We learned a lot, had a lot of fun. Hopefully produced some things that were useful for folks, and so again, my thank you goes out to everyone. And I need to, before getting off, I'll say there's a QR code next to the thank you on the screen. If you would click that, it will take you to a place where you can give us some feedback on the webinar that we'd really appreciate if you would mind. Ellie, how about you got some thoughts you want to share, and I'll get out of the way.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, obviously, I want to thank everybody on the team, from ARA, especially the lead from ARA, Harold Von Quintus, and then from PTSI, Galen, Baumgartners, and their teams, obviously, each one of their teams. I mean, it's been a great pleasure working with everyone. And also, I would like to thank Tim as well, because I mean, he's been with us for 5 years, and he's he's been managing this program, I think, effectively. He was the one always keeping up in line, and then always checking our deadlines and everything, and I think the outcome is great. There's a lot of deliverables. We hope that we can hear from our industry, right, about those deliverables or where we can do better in the upcoming agreements. I mean, at least looking at this, it seems like, we can tell the tech briefs are more popular. So maybe we need to put more time and effort on the tech briefs compared to other things. I think this summary give us a little bit of indication, at least based on the past experience, where we got the most hit. But if you feel like, you want to specifically send us a message, and give us your thoughts, please do so. And we'll be happy to take that into consideration.
Yeah, Yeah, you know, there's a few folks that helped us in consulting roles, right? Chuck Hughes helped us on quality assurance early on. TJ Young, Tom Bennett, and maybe Don Christensen associated with BMD, maybe. Who else am I missing there?
We're always gonna miss someone, right? But
Yeah. BTR
Yeah, and
slide this week. I got Stacy was going to shoot.
yeah. Well, then Galen was also one of the members of the team as well.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks Adam and Ely from UNR and Brian from ARA. Appreciate all the efforts. You made it easy most of the time, I'll say, and feel very good about all the time and effort we spent on this. Appreciate everybody who joined us for this webinar, all the participants, and look forward to having another webinar series maybe starting later this fall. So in the meantime, take care and have a good weekend coming up. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.